Welcome back. Our last story again begins in Da Nang, where Rachel Galvez and Mike Anderer were also given up for adoption at the Sacred Heart Orphanage. They grew up on the East Coast of the US and became very successful in their careers. However, both also felt the emptiness and longing of not knowing their Vietnamese roots. But all that changed thanks to the C2C Foundation, as we will find out.
The C2C Coast Foundation I co-founded with another adoptee who I had met through another project that we were working on. I had met over Zoom, and we coincidentally found our birth mothers the same year, in 2017. We had very similar stories. We grew up in our adoptive families, 5 kids. We grew up, in very nice families. I don't think either of us had ever expected to find biological relatives. So we weren't going into this taking the DNA test for that reason. Yet we both found our birth mothers, and he actually found his birth father the same year. The other co-founder, Kirk Kellerhouse, and I had a similar vision of taking our stories and doing something positive with it. Again, I sort of had this idea since 2017. I wrote a small article for my local paper in 2018, but since then I hadn't really done anything, and I wasn't sure what I could do with it.
As a person, I've always identified myself as Amerasian, Vietnamese American. I definitely have a blood connection to Vietnam. It's part of my heritage, but I also grew up American. I grew up like a traditional, typical American boy. So I have, as they say, it's sometimes a foot in both worlds. I was introduced to the foundation through Kirk and Rachel. Kirk was working on another project. I saw that project mentioned on Facebook. I reached out to Kirk because I was very interested to hear his story. We spoke on the phone a few times, and then I had the opportunity to meet Kirk, Con, and Rachel in New York City. They discussed the foundation with me and talked about the hopes and ambitions for the foundation.
Some of the missions that we've stated with the C2C Foundation does have a timestamp on it, because the war that we were adopted from ended in 1975. So the adoptees are getting older and the veterans are getting older. However, I see this being more of a long-term thing. It could help perhaps veterans of all wars.
So I started to get involved. I pledged my support, and then we had a few Zoom meetings to try to establish some roles and responsibilities. And in probably April or May of this year, I was elected board chairman for the foundation. And it's an honor that I hope to deliver some great work. The foundation means hope. It's about giving hope to those people who are struggling to find connections. There are people who are adopted who don't have any biological connection.
So I believe sharing my journey will help others by, one, having someone maybe or some part of my life that they can relate to. So maybe that'll give them some sense of comfort. I also hope to give people some hope. Again, my life and where I am now sort of emotionally is not where I've always been. So for me, it's been very therapeutic and cathartic to reconnect with other adoptees and learn more about my history. So for people that are wanting to do that, I think it'll be helpful.
It's also about giving hope to the veterans, Vietnam veterans, but also any veterans for the military and active U.S. military, to help them with the emotional struggles of being in conflict. It's something that is near and dear to my heart. My father is a veteran.
Additionally, one of the reasons I really wanted to establish this foundation was to have a legacy for my kids and maybe even my grandkids. So they, if they're interested, they could say, oh, this is my mom's history, this is part of my history, or this is my grandmother's history. So you have an actual entity that is, hopefully a long-standing entity. When I'm gone, which hopefully won't be anytime soon, I'd like to be remembered as a genuine, non-judgmental, caring person.
When I think about people saying that one person can't make a difference, I think of all the lives that I've touched already, and I'm excited to think about all the lives that I can touch in the future.
I'm Rachel Galvez.
I'm Mike Anderer.
And this is
My Voice.
My Voice.